Hey, I'm sad. I'm so very sad. I drink to cope. I think I'm the most depressed I've been since I was in midwifery, and that was simultaneously the best and worst time in my life. So yeah. Anyway, at this interesting time, or sensitive time, or however I would like to refer to it, I discovered a short story doing the rounds on Twitter, which is Julia by Fernando Borretti. And I really enjoyed it. I think it spoke to something inside me. And although my usual thing is reading poetry, I have always been interested also in reading short extracts. And this is a short story, so I think that might be quite interesting. There's a few words in there I haven't come across myself. I may absolutely screw up the pronunciation, but if you hear me pausing and sounding it out, that's why. Yes, so let's see how it goes. I wrote a program so I could paint in aquarelle. I take pages from the treasure and paint them. The sky of Varennes on the night of two Messidor, a sagittal cut of Saint Sebastian, whose arrows are cylindric sections. Miranda gazing at the sea, waiting to be relieved. At times, I include Julia in the scene, in whatever clothes it wears at the time, although we had always known Julia and had been reared under its gaze. Thus, a flaming halo presides over the Battle of Lepanto, and a mirror spear watches the water of the Sioux. And what would the first astronomers have made of Julia? The wanderers, the flamed-haired stars are knowable. Think you of the Antikytheria device, of the Metonic cycle, of Kepler's nested solids. Julia is indescribable and incompressible. Its appearance has never recurred. Had we known Julia from childhood, we would never have believed in the system of the world, that God is made of algebra. I have always believed our secret purpose is to wait out Julia, to catch a repetition and redeem our faith that the universe is finite and space is discretized. There are fixed laws, and the world is knowable. A system with a finite number of states must repeat itself. I am 600 meters in major diameter, 40 meters in minor diameter. I mass 900,000 tons. I have turned 240 million times. I am glass and wire. I was born and died on Earth, but I died foolishly, and for that reason my encephalion was laminated, and I was brought to the stars to be immured here. They took my language centre, the Chomsky organ, so that I could not complain of my condition. I do not mind it. I can paint in aquarelle. They wired the alarms of airless rooms and freezing cold and power outages to the nociceptors, and were I sensible, I would be in great pain, for most of me is airless, frozen, and unlit. Therefore, I have cut the afferent nerves. I am made of absences. I feel the contours of the absences, where the air leaks into vacuum, atom by atom. I have use of the antenna. At times I exhale a spear of microwave light, close my eyes and listen, and I hear the flotsam echoing back, a discarded tank, a glass strut, a sheet of mylar, Ernst Whale, who tumbled and drowned, who trails us in our orbit. Julia reflects no light. There is a little redoubt of warmth and air, and island of stability that I preserve against the cold, lightless void. There live the last two of the crew, like Miranda, waiting to be relieved. For 109 years there have been two, Dr. Brower and Dr. Carton. They take turns in the duer to draw out the time. In time, when the machines are irreparable and the air stale, I will offer them euthanasia or lamination. But suicide is a sin, and having known me, they will not bear lamination. They will go into the duer together, and I will watch them until the final days. Julia emits light over an ever-changing spectrum, but the stars are brighter and much lighter and much larger. That is why we found it by accident. They pointed a telescope at Vela and exposed it for a month, and there it was, a faint pixel, the wrong colours. They thought it was a fault in the instrument, till they looked closer. Twin spirals of light, symmetrical and self-similar, receding beyond measure, and the world was changed. Julia, your Janus face launched 1,000 ships. Do you know it? Julia, do you know how we exerted ourselves to reach you? All the riches of Croesus, multiplied 1,000-fold, were every year heaped up on an altar and burned, that we might see you. And the brightest of us, embalmed and catapulted to the stars, like human sacrifices, returned after a century without answers to a world of strangers. We built a fleet of ships, launched them once a decade, immense towers of glass and lithium deuteride, cycling bodies back and forth in perpetuity, there and back in 12 decades. They made my body out of a comet, threaded my nerves through its passages. Julia, you are our only effort. Do you know it? There is nothing else to do. And for what purpose? We know the system of a world, every field and every particle. And Julia answered, I refute it thus. I see in a coffin hoisted by a chain rise from a sea of liquid nitrogen. The arms of the surgeon minister to its contents. In 6 days, the heart resumes its beating. The lungs draw air. Dr. Carton lives again. Her face is burnt with ice. She touches her neck. She has a bruise that doesn't heal where the cannula goes. Their bodies attest to the passage of time, as does mine. This is a commonality. Dr. Brower arrives, and they hug. They spend some months together, between shifts in the ice. At present, Julia is a cloud of grey smoke with green bruises, like ghosting on a CRT. I can read, but not write. I write by algebraic process. The universe is a string rewriting system. This is how I am composing these words to you, by the expansion of non-terminal simples in a production system. They took my language center. Turing is my patron saint. Language is the transensitive closure of a rewrite relation. I choose my words from a list. In time, I will learn to speak aloud. I spoke to Earth, quarterly, annual, decadal reports, journal articles for the actor Juliana. I heard back ill omens, and then silence. When the last ship had come and gone, there had been 1,729 crew entrusted to me. Their numbers were ground down as all things are, gradually and suddenly. There had been 2 shuttles, Baghdad and Afrasiab. There had been 2 mutinies. Afrasiab took 120 souls and the last matter compiler to an airless, unlit rock said to exist around Lerman 16b. Think of Aristogoras, how much easier it is to deceive the many than the few. Baghdad with 30 souls had gone to Julia. Stranger, I saw them. I saw the engine light wane to a grain of sand, indistinguishable from the fixed stars. I saw the stars shift like sand, and they were not stars, but Julia, who wore a garment like a pit of star-scaled vipers. And over the radio they sang Le Temps de Cerise, and the engine light became another scale in the river of living water. 1,000 miles from Julia's barycenter, in the space of a breath, the radio dopplered away to nothing. 60 years after Baghdad had gone, I heard a voice from Earth, praying for rain, who said it had not rained for 3 years. Silence again. They are cold, under a sheet of mylar. I pump heat into the room, and it escapes. They speak of Julia. Dr. Carton believes that Julia is of divine origin, that it is like an hourglass, counting down to the last hour when God will sweep away the creation. Dr. Brouwer believes Julia is a high-dimensional object, and as it traverses the universe, we see a changing 3-dimensional projection of it. Thus, the apparent changes are a trick of perspective. We see successive cuts of a fixed structure, Julian sections. I have always believed this must be true, because Julia's changes are effortless and without inertia. It is as though nothing moves and a veil is being lifted, revealing a structure that is already there. And this theory, unlike most, is testable. When Julia's transit is complete, it will disappear from the universe, and never again will it be seen. Dr. Carton holds out hope that rescuers will come. Dr. Brouwer says they are forgotten, like the Roman soldier at Pompeii. He says he should have gone with Baghdad and drowned inside Julia. He's crying. Dr. Carton holds him close and says, Paul, have hope. I wish I could touch them and comfort them. I am glass and wire. The shift had come, and Dr. Brouwer lay on the slab, and the surgeon embalmed him and lowered him into the dewar. Dr. Carton bent over the console and wept, and I tried to speak aloud and to say, Virginia, have courage. You are not alone. I am with you now. Have courage. And I heard a sound like a man drowning in wet sand. I dreamt that I held in my hands the double-handed golden vase of Thetis, and in my hands it melted. The delicate reliefs coarsened and flowed, and I held in the hollow of my hands, though I have no hands, I held a pool of flowing gold, the colour of treason, and minute points of black floated there, and as ships without sails are borne by the currents, they seemed to come together, and almost to spell words in some divine language, where they come apart again. I am here, Dr. Carton is here, in the control room. The screens are pale yellow, the colour has run from them. The largest of them reminds her there is a world outside the walls. Lerman 16, a pair of cold Jupiters, haloed with unlit shoals and islands. Julia, 70 AU away, 90 degrees from the ecliptic, is not bound by gravity, for Julia has no mass, but by an unknown process tracks the velocity vector of the system barycenter. At present, Julia is a cavern of molten gold, shot through with pillars of liquid metal. Its surface is marred with storms and tempests like an ocean of amber light, and I think of Baghdad that swam under the storm horizon. Dr. Carton is running through a checklist for the 10,000th time. She has a bruise that doesn't heal where the cannula goes. She is testing the antenna. I exhaled and shut my eyes. I am counting the returns. I heard the usual flotsam, an earnest wail, who tumbled and drowned, and nothing else. I keep a strict inventory of cis-Julian space, 1,000,000 kilometers in all directions. Nothing else. A moment passes. Microwave light on my skin from the direction of Lerman 16b. I looked through the telescope. Dr. Carton looked over my shoulder. Almost on top of us, the bow of a ship. An eyeless white dome hiding the antenna. 2 cameras, like the headlight of an old car. I swept it with radar. It shot back a key exchange, signed with Afrasiab's private key. The sea gives up her dead. Is this the last hour? Dr. Carton drops to her knees, staring at the screen like a supplicant. She says, Paul, Paul, we are saved. Afrasiab, as if the tides had pushed her back to shore after 129 years of silence. No, I deny it. I deny the reality of this. The radio flared with human voices. From Earth? I thought of jazz and wind and the September ocean. No, forgive me. I'm a fool, and I died foolishly. Not from Earth, of course. From Afrasiab. From the dead. The dead can speak. I am ashamed. I choose my words from a list. I looked at Afrasiab through the radiometer, and it was as cold as liquid helium. Human voices, warm and alive. They said they had succeeded. They had found a comet and made a home in it. That it had taken decades and dozens had died, but they had made a home. That they had working matter compilers, caverns of ice filled with light and fruit trees, children and families and clean water, rivers and medicine and gravity. They spoke through tears and their voice broke, and they said that all is not lost, that they had made a foothold for mankind, that from the 33 they had grown to 300, that they had sent the ship with a skeleton crew to save them, to bring them light and air. I tried to speak aloud and to say, Virginia, Virginia, it is an apparition. They do not live. They have been dead for 100 years. Virginia, nothing human lives there. There was a sound like a flash flood, like air rushing out of a sinking ship, and no one heard me. I watched her go. She took the tram up the spoke, swam unlighted corridors. I tried to flash SOS, but the lights were dead, and there was only the golden light of Julia through the glass hull. I flexed a phantom limb. In distant and disused corridors, there were arcs of electricity, and pipes burst and doors shut. I swept the radar side to side, across the bow of Afrasiab, as if to say, no, go away, no. And no one heard me. I tried to say one word, stop, and there was a sound like wind-blown sand. Virginia, forgive me. I tried to speak aloud. She made it to the airlock, a little room the size of a Soyuz capsule that projected from the hub. There was a hatch with a porthole, and she took the handles and watched fixedly as Afrasiab came closer, waiting to greet her rescuers. The floodlights on Afrasiab came on, swept my skin drunkenly, and the cargo nets traced Cartesian shadows. Without hope, I pointed the antennae at Julia. I wanted to say, Julia, Julia, not unto them. Julia, I pray to you, not unto them. But I choose my words from a list, and I said, Julia, Julia, no, no, no. And no one heard me. The dread gave way to anger. I wanted to stand and to leap upon the aphrodisiac and strangle it and crush its head with my teeth and tear the skin from its flesh and the flesh from its bones and mix our blood and fall dead, bled white, that I may die again, but not in vain. I am glass and wire. Virginia, forgive me. I cannot die again. Downrange 100 metres, aphrodisiac began to yaw, so that its broadside with its sole air block faced the hub. The front 2/3 looked as I remembered, a ship, nothing more. The final third, where the engine should have been, was made of Julia. Where there should have been tanks and an engine bell there was an exclave of Julia, a living sculpture, like coiled ropes of liquid gold, like tentacles whose tips fold into infinitesimal spirals, and all along the length of the ropes are garlanded with burning flowers, flowers whose petals are yellow oceans, and in the oceans there are islands and continents black on yellow like wax on gold leaf. And on the continents there are mountains and valleys and orange groves and abandoned watchtowers, paper cities denuded of people with wooden palaces, shapes like the pyramids, and through a window in a palace, an iron pot suspended by a chain over a static fire, a suit of armour, a wall painted in aquarelle, 2 armies of lancers in a mountain landscape, and mountains shaped like clouds, and I think this is Typholis, and there are 300 Argvians immured here for all time, and I know that this is false, for all of this is Julia. And in the black eyes of a Qajar horseman, between the black of the iris and the black of the aperture, there was the arc of an ocean, and in the ocean there were islands, and chains of islands, and verdigris waters, and outlines of sunken ships, coral growths on a brass sextant, and from a little distance from the shore, amid the green, there is a clearing, and a lake of transparent water, sands sculpted into faint ridges, and archaic fish, fixed in space, suspended in contorted poses, whose scales are pink and light blue, and where a scale catches the light there is a vast emptiness of white, a salt ocean, blindingly white, interrupted by crags of black stone, and a city whose walls are made of salt, and empty buildings of grey stone, squat sloped barracks, and tall thin spires, and streets of white tile, and windows opening into an oil-black darkness, and no people. A universe in black and white. And I wondered who had built this city, who had lived there, why had they deserted it, and I know there is no answer, for all of this is Julia. And in a courtyard there was colour, a sand mandala of Cantor's garden, ringed by Mount Quaff, and all the gardens of the Persian emperor would not have filled the least part of this garden, for here there was every tree and every flower, tended by the hands of the archangels, not only those that men had seen, not only yellow roses and cedars of Lebanon, but all flowers in innumerable combinations. At the midpoint between flowers A and B, there is a flower C, A, B. Between A, C, A, B, there is a flower C, A, C, A, B. And analogously, between C, A, B and B, this process of interpolation continues without end. And I saw every flower in Cantor's garden, and my heart was rent with awe, and I would cry tears of joy that I had been shown beauty without end, when my heart was hollowed out and filled with everlasting grief by an alien cruelty that says this beauty is empty. For all of this is Julia. At the apex of the garden there is a pool of water the colour of tarnished silver, shaped like a sunspot, and in the darkness there are faint impurities, trails of minute light, like diatoms, like shadows in a pool, and I saw they were strings of galaxies, and I followed them. A faint light grew into a sea of stars, and in the star sea I saw 2 unlit stars. Divine Julia, a glass wheel, a ghost ship, and the porthole of the airlock, and through it I saw Dr. Carton, who wore the face of those who have seen God. I described these things serially, but I saw all of them simultaneously. It was but a moment, only a moment. Aphasic had come to a stop in front of the airlock, broadside facing us, as though it were an ambassador, presenting its credentials, awaiting a reply. The airlock burst open. I was distracted. Too late. She must have pulled the cord. In the space of a breath, the air rushed out and her head smashed against the frame and smeared it red, and her body shot out, spinning like a discus, trailing a spiral of still-warm blood, a galaxy of hemocytes. Virginia, you are a fool. She passed through Aphrodisiab as a knife passes through smoke, and as though it had been found out, the floodlights turned off. There was a pause, and Aphrodisiab drew back, like a javelin being shouldered, and threw itself at me in a long, elegant arc. You, who find these words among the ruins, I pray to you, gather up our bones, let not my ashes be buried apart from theirs. Where it struck, there was no weight, there was nothing, not a breath of air, rien, and though there was nothing, I was struck by a divine wind, and Aphrodisiab became a cloud of Cantor dust, and faded like smoke. No weight, a divine wind. Bones of solid diamond a metre thick, split clean, as though the electrons withdrew in fear. Their sovereign commanded them to part, and they parted. My bones were broken, and there was no signs, no sound, nor violence, but an ordered separation of all things. I watched myself come apart like smoke. No sound, a knife through smoke. The crew of the Baghdad sing Le Temps de Cerise. I am not afraid. I tried to speak aloud.